The speaking assessment involves two tasks. Task 1 is a discussion on one of the sub-themes from themes 3 and 4, and Task 2 is the presentation and discussion of the candidate's independent research project. The speaking assessments take place within a 5-week assessment period prescribed by Pearson during April and May. Candidates have 5 minutes to prepare Task 1. The preparation must be supervised by an invigilator and takes place immediately before the examination. Candidates aren't allowed dictionaries or any other resources during the preparation time, but they are allowed to write notes up to a maximum of one side of A4 paper. They can take these notes into the examination and refer to them during the assessment. They must hand them in to the teacher examiner at the end of the exam together with the stimulus card. There is a set order of cards which is prescribed by Pearson in a sequencing grid. For Task 1, the invigilator will offer the candidate a choice of 2 sub-themes according to this sequencing grid. For example, you may choose music or media. The candidate doesn't see the cards but chooses the topic and is then given the relevant card by the invigilator. The candidates may not change the card once it's been handed to them. Task 1 has 2 statements offering different views on a sub-theme, each with 2 prompts for the candidate to consider. The candidate selects one of the 2 statements. At the start of the examination, the candidate tells the examiner which statement they've chosen. In Part 1 of the ensuing discussion, the examiner asks the 2 compulsory questions on the examiner card. The candidate should lead the discussion, with the examiner helping to develop the discussion by asking appropriate follow-up questions. In Part 2 of Task 1, the examiner broadens the discussion to cover other aspects of the overall theme. The questions asked should enable the candidate to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of the cultural and social context and to analyse aspects of the theme by allowing them to develop and justify arguments and form conclusions. The questions are set on the examiner instruction card. They must be asked as presented in the correct order. They may be repeated but not rephrased. Optional generic questions are provided by Pearson to support the examiner in the follow-up discussion. Task 1 lasts approximately 6 to 7 minutes. Task 1 is worth 30 marks. The marks are divided between 3 assessment grids. The first grid is out of a maximum of 12 marks and assesses the candidate's ability to communicate information about different aspects of culture and society of the countries where the language is spoken. Students are assessed on whether they can respond critically by selecting relevant material, presenting and justifying points of view, developing their arguments and drawing appropriate conclusions based on their understanding. A second grid with a maximum of 12 marks rewards candidates for their ability to use a range of structures and vocabulary and their accuracy in their application of grammar, as well as their pronunciation. The final grid, which is worth 6 marks, assesses their ability to interact with the examiner by responding to what they have heard, initiating communication and eliciting points of view from the examiner. Task 2 assesses the student's independent research project. Task 2 has 2 parts. The discussion of the research project begins with Part 1, the presentation, where the candidate provides a summary of at least 2 written sources they used as part of their research. The candidate should outline the author's main ideas, give a personal response to what they have read. The candidate may refer to their independent research form, RP3, during this part of the task. The presentation mustn't exceed 2 minutes. In part 2, the examiner broadens the discussion to a wider exploration of the candidate's presentation and research. The examiner uses the key findings and list of resources on the candidate's RP3 form to formulate questions and engage the candidate in discussion. The questions should enable the candidate to give examples and information to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of the social context. They should also analyse aspects of the topic by developing and justifying arguments and forming conclusions. Further guidance on the independent research project can be found in the specifications. Task 2 lasts 10 to 11 minutes. 1 mark grid is used to assess the presentation of Part 1 of Task 2. It assesses the candidate's ability to summarise information from the written sources used for their independent research. 3 further grids are applied to Part 2 of Task 2 to assess the candidate's knowledge and understanding of society and culture, their accuracy and range of language, and their interaction. These grids are identical to those used in Task 1. In both Task 1 and Task 2, candidates are expected to ask questions that elicit opinions as part of the natural discourse and to confirm that their own points of view have been understood. They are expected to take the lead in discussions. Teachers should encourage students to develop as natural a conversation as possible with the examiner. They should not prepare banks of answers to questions, but practice skills which allow them to give relevant, impromptu responses. Developing communication strategies which allow students to rephrase what they wish to say, even when they don't know the exact vocabulary, is another important skill. During the course of the discussion, they should elicit the examiner's view on the subject matter by asking them their opinion about the issues being discussed. A thorough knowledge of the social and cultural context of the target language countries is another important feature. But students should be aware that whilst accuracy is important, they're not expected to produce perfect, error-free speech in order to access the top bands in the assessment grids.